Souq News today, we have the privilege of connecting with one of the pioneer broadcasters in Nigeria, one of the faces that graced television, and she was there when radio started in Nigeria. We have the privilege of hosting this morning on any exchange the veteran broadcaster and the television goddess, Julie Coker. Glad to have you join us this morning.
Well, it's a privilege to be here with you. Thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone.
For me, today is looking like a special day.
It's a special day.
It's indeed.
I was going to ask you to sing me a song since it's Valentine's Day.
Oh, interesting.
Somebody tried to do that this morning earlier on. But it's okay. I'm delighted to be here. It's a pleasure, really.
Even if we're not going to sing, just know we have a special love for you. That's why we've decided to invite you and for you to be our guest. We can consider it to be a great honor. So yesterday was World Radio Day. Every year you have especially dedicated for that, which is February 13th, as provided by UNESCO. You were there when it started in Nigeria. You were the delight of everybody when radio and television started in Nigeria. Give us like a little account of how it started, your memories and some of your
Those were the days of WNTV, WNBS. So it's quite a mouthful, to say W. And we took a long time, getting to grips with how to actually pronounce the alphabet WNTV, WNBS. But before then, we had contacts with the old NBC, Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, not commission. Everything has sort of, moved from our own early days. But of course, radio still is a pivotal force in shaping Nigerian society. We take this back to the age of the rediffusion. I bet you've never heard of anything called rediffusion.
We read about
those were the little, contraptions that you had in people's sitting rooms, and everybody's life revolved around it, listening to, even the days of Baba Salah, they were on radio, and so many other things. That was how even the village headmaster evolved from radio. People knocked things around, to give the right sound effect. And for many years, the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation then used to win awards in different parts of the world. I remember going to Algeria with a little production by a friend, Peter Ego. But radio had been there for the Radio Broadcasters Association of the entire world before UNESCO decided that they were going to be celebrating Radio Day. But things had been going on. There was a competition, and NBC had been the winner of that competition for well over 20 years. And we were not really aware of this, but we knew that wonderful things were happening on radio. A lot of things developed in WNBS in those days. If you were working on TV, you had to have a program on radio. You either decided whether you wanted to do an English program or Yoruba program. You'll never believe that I chose to do a Yoruba request program.
Interesting.
And we started the program by saying Elembenwo, which is your way of saying hello or good morning. And my friends in Lagos, didn't come to terms with that for a long time. How could you be doing a program in Yoruba? But we had learned a lot. And that was how you were able to reach the people in their homes, speaking to them in their own dialect and at their own level. So since the colonial era, when radio was introduced to Nigeria, I think it was during the war, and they wanted to communicate and recruit people into the Royal Frontier Force. People were recruited from Ghana across the western coast of Africa. And Nigeria, of course, Nigeria would always be in the forefront. So that was how radio was brought into Nigeria. And I remember that one of our director generals, Michael Olumide, He became Director General later, but he was just a young radio presenter like you, and he had such a wonderful voice like yours. And he was the one that used to open the King's or the Queen's Christmas message every year. You would not believe that it's a Nigerian that did that. So that's our own connection with the BBC and, you know, other world affairs, because people wanted to listen to the Queen's message, and they would have to come for him all the way to Nigeria, travel by the BOAC to London to introduce the program. Now we present the Queen for her Christmas message. People thought it was an Englishman doing it, but it shows that we had become, you know, we played an important role in the development of radio communication, reaching out to the world and meeting so many people. We were very proud of him. I didn't even know at that time that I was going to become you know, have one leg in broadcasting, not to talk of my entire body and soul. He was not, you know, was a very, very friendly person. But because of this, everybody held him in high esteem. But there were women who were reading the news on television, on radio rather. People like Ms. Tomu Adedoyin, Eno Etuk, Marie Rikefe. At that time, when our women were reading the news in Nigeria, on the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, women were not even allowed to read the news either on radio or TV in England. So we had actually, you know, blazed the trail in so many other areas, broadcasting. And all these are wonderful experiences. When I was in school, because of my relationship with I was very close to my cousin, Michael Olumide, and I thought one of these days I might follow him to the radio station. Like I said before, little did I know that I would end up doing anything, either working for television or even radio. So my love for television and radio date back many, many years. And well, we're still plodding along and praying that more people will be given their own license so that we can have community radios in so many areas. I walked into a radio station once in a place called Sapele. I don't know if you've heard about it. And they were introducing Robo high life music on radio. Prior to that time, people had, you know, their own little cassettes, but radio was able to reach out to people in that area. And the star of that high life Robo music became very famous, and he made a lot of money, and he was given a chieftaincy title because, you know, he was able to touch the lives of his own people. And that is how far the medium can actually reach, reaching deep down into the areas that even television cannot reach. Radio has been able to surpass all these other things, even though television thing that's, you know, we are there, but still, radio, I'm sure, you know, has been able to, you know, meet a lot of obligations, touch the lives of people, give them the type of music that ordinarily they would have live, but they'll be able to, you know, turn a little gadget or have a little contraption, which was what they, you know, people had their own little transistor radios. Do you remember? Mm-hmm. Is there anything still existing like that? Yes,
in some parts of the country, yes.
Yes, in every part of the country. And sometimes, you know, you have your little guard outside the house and he's listening to his own station. You can't even understand what the message is about, but you know that, you know, he's enjoying himself. And so over the years, radio has actually played this role in the lives of the people around the world. Now, I remember that my late husband, Mike Enahoro, was given a radio license to start his own station in a place called Abafon. he didn't take it lightly. He wasn't very delighted about it. And I said, look, why don't you try and set up your own radio station and people will know more about it. I can't remember what the name of the station is now. They did very well. They're still performing well. And other people have moved into that area, even after he left the country and went to live in America for many years. But he already had the license. And when, government decided that it was going to, share out licenses to various people, even Silverbirds, who was actually at the forefront of, the request to government, to let people have their own stations and run them whichever way and give it their own personality touch, their own personal touch. Instead of giving Silverbirds a TV license, he was given a radio license, and that was how it got started. And that was how AIT also started. So many things have evolved over the years, and people have adapted them to their own needs. And I think the sky still remains, the limit.
Let's look at the evolvement of radio over the years. It's been 100 years of radio existence, a century. A lot of things have happened. You've talked about how radio was impacting lives at community level. Do we still have radio functioning very much at community level these days and playing the role that it used to play then, inform the people, be something that they resonate with? You talked about presenting programs in Yoruba language, and you would say it in a way that those listening could connect to because it was very familiar. Do you think it's still that way with community radio and with radio generally in Nigeria?
I think the media face a lot of challenge in the digital age. You still find that even when you have your TV these days, at some point you can press a knob and you're on radio. So that means that people are still conscious that radio still has a lot to play. There's a lot of challenge. I mean, my grandchildren don't want to listen to radio, of course, because they don't see any cartoon running all over the place like Nickelodeon and all that. But it's there, and they know that it's, and occasionally I would say, well, stop there, I've just heard somebody saying something, and, try to get them to listen. So it still has a lot of role to play. Otherwise, you have Go TV, and at some point, when you make a slight mistake, you're on radio, and you get somebody, really putting out some pulsating, sound from their own area. In the mornings, for instance, you can still hear people doing newspaper review in Yoruba on radio. Have you ever tried to listen to that? Oh, a lot of incantations and things. It's very exciting, particularly if you've learned Yoruba very well. You can still relate to some of those, voices and messages that are being, put across. They sometimes remind you of Jaito Noton Tosi Dara, Maduro Dojola, Koko Nsore Tete. You hear them say, oh, our time is going up. That's what it means as Koko Nsore Tete. On radio, the driver who brings me down to Lagos and drives me around loves to listen to radio. I mean, you couldn't be driving and watch television, of course. So radio is still there to provide that, exciting time for you. You get familiar with some of the names, of course. There are a lot of comedy shows going on there on radio. And I think in America, even radio is still very, very popular. People still want to listen to some of the people they grew up listening to as little kids. It's only in Nigeria that you don't have people getting attached to some of the people, maybe they've gone into retirement. But in England, some people are diehard radio. You find them in their gardens with their little transistor radio, listening to their favorite programs. The interesting thing is that when you are doing drama, you hear a lot of banging, signifying that the door had just been opened, somebody had just walked in, or somebody was about to have a cup of tea, and someone knocked his leg on the table. And that is part of the drama that some people still enjoy. So radio is still there, and I think it's going to remain there forever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So if the goddess has said radio is going to remain there forever, so shall it be. Now let's look at standard now. During your time, you're here, you had all the ethics for presentation and production. Now, if you are to compare that to now, that you have more of technology during production, and even AI is taking shape as well, are you worried that we'll get to a time whereby the radio culture will fade, or the standard is going to decline?
Radio, I don't think that the standard will decline. Because if you think that people are watching you, you're going to be a little conscious about either your appearance or one thing or the other. But on radio, you can walk in with just wearing, sneakers were not known to be seen around. But on radio, you can walk in and do your own thing without being self-conscious. So that means that there are some people who are that way inclined, who feel that that is the medium on which they are going to reach out to their own audience. They have their own particular, personalized, on-demand content, as it were. Because people may think, oh, you are going on television, you have to be spruced up nicely and looking very, dazzling like a TV star. But on radio, it's not that people don't care about their appearance, it's just that some people feel more relaxed when they're not being watched, when not too many eyes on them. I mean, when you're going on TV, you have butterflies, or it's like going on stage. But on radio, nobody sees you. You're more conscious about the content of your program and what you're about to disseminate, to people. So there's no time because I'm sure that over the years, a lot of people would have predicted that by now, nobody will be listening to radio. But it hasn't been that way. People still love to listen to radio. I love listening to radio, and I love when I want to reach out to, I remember my days on WMBS, putting out my Yoruba request program. I want to hear what they're saying. And I asked the driver to turn up the volume so that I can enjoy the program. There's a lot of music in the background, and some of them really like Fela's music. There was an occasion I thought they were going to play Fela. I said, why do they keep repeating, stopping and starting the music? And the driver said, that is the theme for their program. That is the theme song. It just goes on, tan, 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 Fela's type of music. And I want the music to continue. But he said, no, they also love to listen to Fela's music. And of course, Fela sings a lot in the Yoruba dialect. So that goes on very well. Some people who would like to listen to that music would tune to that station. And that is a, character for which that station is well known for. The man who plays Fela's music along with what the newspapers are saying. And like I said before, they will go on, and if they're talking about some of the Yoruba head of state, they will recite his title from here to John O'Groves before they even introduce the program, blah, blah, blah. So when you're familiar with that kind of presentation, that style, you will still be attached to that station. And some people will say, oh, bring me my radio station so I can listen to someone, eulogizing some Oba or someone. You don't have that too much. You don't have that much time on TV. But on radio, you can go on and on, enjoying yourself. So, and there are some people in some rural areas. There are some areas that have no electricity. What are you going to do? It's radio. Radio provides the answer. Radio is the medium of entertainment for them. So, well, you don't have to be old to enjoy radio.
But we're seeing different variations now of what radio presents. They are not radio stations where, with the advent of technology, we have people who are doing podcasts, doing radio-like programs, and they come as if it's radio presentation, different variations of what radio offers. Do you think that threatens radio?
Well, who's going to set the standard? Who is setting the standard?
Well, for social media and a lot of the new media, it's like an all-comers affair.
Many things
do what you
tailored
like.
to, individual preferences. You still have that. You have a choice there. You can't take that away from people. You can't deny them of, what makes them happy. There are some people in England who've never seen television before, but they go to the theater religiously because that is where they derive their entertainment from. That's where they go watch the ballet. If you take some people to watch the ballet, they say, what are they doing there? What is all this about? But that is what keeps them going. That is what they want to do with their lives. That is what they enjoy doing. Once a month, a whole family will decide that everybody is going to go to the theater. Do you have that going on? We have a national theater here. We've killed it. If we had a chance, we would throw a bomb there and, scatter it to smithereens. Whereas some of the theaters built in England, from the days of Shakespeare, some going on to 1,000 years or more, dating back so many years. National Theatre it should have been the pride of Nigeria. It should really be the pride of Nigeria. They should have radio stations in there, TV channels, disseminating information to people, making people's life better. Ogunde performed so many times in that place. And maybe I'll use the opportunity also to pay tribute to my late friend, Jimmy Sholanke, who died about this time last week. He was on radio, he was an artist, and a hall should have been dedicated to him, to the life of Jimmy Sholanke, because he did everything that you could possibly think about that relates to art, the theater, and he was a singer and everything. But we spend so much time maybe listening to juju music, Nigerians, particularly Lagosians, so that they can spend money and let people see how rich they are, how they can throw away money and stamp on it. And those are the kind of things that would be an abomination in some parts of the world. Nobody would want to trample on the dollar, for instance, in England. The sterling in England or the dollar in America. But we Nigerians enjoy just stamping on our own money to show that we have arrived. That's, we are now, the richest people in either their family or they're showing off to other people that they think are their enemies, Some people believe that being at the theater is like being in paradise. Takes them back so many years. Who in Nigeria wants to listen to Shakespeare? Or who wants to go to the theater now? Except you go and resurrect people like Ogunde. There are still some people who will wake up from their beds and want to go and say, Ogunde is playing today at the National Theatre. But there hasn't been a follow-up to that. But let's bring ourselves back to radio again. You can play Ogunde's music on radio. You can play music of Ebenezer Obey, Shina Peters, Sonny Ade, and even some juju music of the past. There's some sections on radio where you can still listen to all those things. Or to classical music, for instance. It sounds better on radio, really, than on television. Don't you think so? I don't know if anybody likes classical music, but I do. And when you listen on radio, you don't want any distractions. You just want to stay there. If you haven't got your own, what do you call it, portable turntable that you can put on those. But the radio station still maintains that standard. And whoever is going to present the program knows his onions. He knows what he's about to deliver to you. So radio, to me, still runs, side by side. The standard is still very high. People still maintain the right level. Sonny Donije, people like Friday, 4-day of those days, Sonny Rabo. Sonny Rabo owns his own radio station, but he was on TV for many years in Second Chance. He was of course, a radio presenter before he took on the role as a teacher in, I don't think you know about that. You've never heard of Second Chance on TV.
We've read about.
But he owns it, so I think he's one of those that got the license. And he's well known for his radio, style of presentation. So someone who has gone, all through the whole gamut of, part of the communications medium, he will forever remain there. And people will he still has his own, fan base that people still would like to relate to. Someone came to me the other day and that she wants a job. She just came from America and she wants to be a presenter on radio. A certain friend of mine, Miss Mbanefo, Ashley, she said, oh, I would love to be a radio presenter because I don't want to be seen on TV, but I know I have something to offer because she had done something like that on radio. So in America. So when she comes here, everybody wants to be a Nollywood actress, but she says it's radio for her. So this is a tribute to someone like that people still would prefer to be working on radio than on TV. And my own first contact with the communication media is radio.
All right.
I still remember all those lovely ladies who used to read the news, even before the news was read by women in England. And all the BBC pips, that was what kept us alive. We went to bed at 8 o'clock after listening to there's a jingle that at the top of the hour, da 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 da, and it goes on, and then you hear the pips. Boom, boom. You can count. We know as little children we used to count down, and we know it's 8 o'clock now. We can go to bed.
It's quite interesting listening to you. But away from the World Radio Day, now let's talk about you. You started your career in broadcasting at the age of 16, 17, as I read. And you became famous. And I would like you to give us maybe your experience. How were you able to manage that phase of your life where you became famous, were able to manage the challenges that came with it? And then what will be the turning point for you in radio broadcasting if you realize that that technology has taken over? Then I also like to know what happened. You became popular at the time. Women were not popular on TV. Even radio broadcasting, they were doing more radio broadcasting rather than TV. How were you able to manage that phase, the stigma that came with it, and for you to be able to break that jinx?
Wow. I think I believe that whatever will be, will be. The future is not really ours to tell. As a little child, you don't know which direction you are really going. I thought I was going to be an actress because in school, first in elementary school, St. Mary's Convent School, we were exposed to the Festival of Arts. And, that sort of forms the kind of, what direction you're going to move. You don't really know, of course, you can't predict, or there's no soothsayer to tell you what you're going to be doing. But I know that in those days, some of our aunties, they would disappear from the scene and they say, oh, they've run away with the dancing troupe that came to town. It happened. Can you believe that kind of thing happened? excuse me, because they were fascinated and drawn to the stage. It was like magic. But for television, there was nothing like that. You know, if you wanted to go with Ogunde Theatre or with Ogunjobi, whatever, you would have gone to watch a play, or somebody would have shown you their posters. But for the way we went into television, it was just like, you know, a mystery. So nobody prepared you for anything like that. Of course, I took part in the Miss Western Nigeria competition and later on Miss Nigeria, where I came second. But the person who came first, you know, fizzled into, you know, oblivion, more or less. She was very famous at that time for like a year. You know, she was given a car and blah, so on and so forth. You never can tell the future. Nobody wants. These days, people promote their image on whatever you call it, social media, and say, oh, I'm famous, I'm beautiful, I've been married 10 times, so 100, you know, I have so many children. And then people follow them because they are interested in doing. I never wanted people to know what I'm doing. I wanted to keep my life, you know, very secret. Not pretend to be a nun, of course, but you never know what is there. Even those who are trying to keep their fame, you know, or their style in the limelight, sometimes they cannot even sustain it for too long. But let everybody enjoy whatever comes to them, whatever anybody wants to do. When we went for the Festival of Arts, we particularly did not want to go, because if you didn't perform well, like the Green Eagles came with just a silver, I came with a silver from the Festival of Arts, and I got a thorough beating in the school because the nun said you should have been going for the gold. So that already, you know, gave me, I knew that if I said something on stage, people will listen from a very tender age. I was 10 or 11 when I went for the first broadcast, and the competition was won by an English boy from Corona School. I came from St. Mary's School and I came second, and that still was not good enough. A very high standard had been set for me, as it were. And then I went to Holy Child College, and we were taking part in plays, Chimes of Normandy, if I there was the Loud of Tartary. You had that voice in your ear saying, okay, go for it, say this. People will listen because you did it once before at a very tender age. That was what propelled me, you know, into going into all those things.
So let's look forward now. Even as the world celebrates radio, 100 years of radio. So the federal government of Nigeria is pledging support for community radio. As much as they've been enjoyed by listeners over these years, some of them are struggling to sustain. Now, in what area do you think this support should come?
You need the whole committee to sit down at it. And you know how government work is. They will appoint someone to sit at the head of the chairman of the board of committees, and so many other people will come on board, and each one will be arguing about one thing or another, and you never get there. So whatever you want to say to them will remain forever in your mind or your dreams. There's nothing you can tell government in Nigeria that ever gets done. It's only by chance. When the English people came and the colonial masters came and gave us NBC, someone at some point decided that why should it be NBC? It should be FRCN. That's an abomination. Radio has been there for over 50 years, and relating to places like the BBC, the NBC of America, and CNN here, there, and yonder, and you come straight back and say, we're going to turn the whole thing around. Broadcasters are becoming too, full of themselves, and they have been dabbling in things that they ought not to be dabbling in. Someone come with an axe and just cuts the whole thing down. See what happened to the theater. I still go back to that. That is the symbol of the culture of a people. A lot of people, if they wake up, if there's a resurrection and they wake up, they wouldn't know where to, they wouldn't recognize what the theater looks like now. And that is the way of Nigeria. I'm not being, too cynical about something like that. It's just that we all have dreams. We just wait for them to happen. If it happens in Nigeria, we're lucky. We're happy. Sometimes we have, people who even entertain us before we can say, are you alone, waka come? Somebody like that is entertaining people, whereas that is the kind of thing that gets people interested in what is happening in Nigeria. Standards can remain standard. They say, that's N.L. Brown, grammar too much, self, Why doesn't she speak like Zebediah Okorigwe Ngogbo? People who are making, I wouldn't know what, comedians, I think, have a better chance of lasting and remaining in the limelight for a long time. Those who are trying to set standards, you want to speak English grammar. No, we don't tire for that one small. If we go London, I go hear English when they talk there, but speak to me. Now, there's a TV channel that has a lot of interesting contents, and people listen to them. But on weekends now, they say we are going to change to Pidgin. I've just noticed that over the past weekend. Are we going down or moving up? Do we want everybody to speak Pidgin? Are we watering down the standards?
But don't you think that brings some variety into it?
Of course, as long as you put a check on it. There's a little bit of check and balance here and there. But if you're going to be making it to turn some people away, then that is counterproductive. Still, we will still keep prodding on. We still have people like you, both of you, speaking good English to us, setting the high standards. There are some places you go, you can't even hear what they are saying. You can't even understand them. You can't keep abreast with what is the content or what the whole thing is all about. But we're happy that, we are here now and we're able to relate to ourselves and say what we need to say to ourselves properly. If people like Wole Soyinka had watered down their standard, he wouldn't have won the Nobel Prize. But he kept the standard going. Even at some point, the British found it difficult to understand what the death of the king's drama was all about. I saw him in London, and I saw the review in the papers the following day, because the death of the horseman or so, they had to get the horse into the theater, and that made news. And that was one of the people say, some people say, why didn't they give it to another person? Why did they give it to Wole Soyinka? There's certain things that make people stand out, People set standards for themselves. A lot of people still haven't forgotten the names I've mentioned now. When they see you on the street, they say, oh, how's Bimbo Oloyede? Because she set a very high standard. When a performance on TV, first time, and she still goes to lecture at the TV college. Occasionally, they invite me along as well. Well, I'm not exactly a busybody, but I think I'm...
So you're not
I enjoy...
what you're saying is
I
that
do enjoy going
keep
there.
the standard of radio.
Keep the standard on radio, keep the standard on television. Don't say, okay, give us a little bit of Pidgin here and there.
Okay.
We will enjoy it. I mean, I come from an area where Pidgin is the lingua franca. My mother is from Warri, and I, spend some time there, and I speak the language very well, and I can speak better Pidgin than anybody else.